Welcome to our show, Conversation with Priya. Welcome in 2021 as well, and Happy New Year for all our audience and who has been supporting in 2020. Thank you for joining in today. And today, our guest is a very special woman, Miss Shalini Warrior. Warrior has over 28 years of banking experience. Prior to joining Federal Bank, she worked with the Standard Chartered Bank, a leading multinational bank. She handled multiple disciplines there across various geographic and they included Indian, Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore, and United Arab Emirates. She brings first-hand global experience in branch banking, process management, service quality, and client experience, project management operations, technology, and compliance with the special emphasis on client due diligence and anti-money laundering. Ms. Shalini Warrier is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and stood first at the All India level in 1989. She is also a certified associate of Indian Institute of Bankers. She has represented the bank at various fintech and technology platforms in India and abroad. So today, help me to welcome Shalini Warrior. Hello and welcome to our show. Today our guest is Shalini Warrior. Looking forward, ma'am, for taking you on board and hearing some things from your experience. Thank you for joining and accepting our request. Would you like to say something about your whole journey of your career and how you reached to this position, please?
Thank you very much, Priya, and hello to everybody. Happy New Year to everybody, and I hope everybody is keeping safe and sound. A little bit about myself and a little bit about Federal before we get into the kind of meat of the questions. As Priya mentioned, my name is Shalini Warrior. I'm currently an executive director with Federal Bank, a leading private sector bank in India. I've been with Federal Bank for about 5 years. Prior to which I worked with an international bank called Standard Chartered Bank for 25 years.
Yeah.
In Standard Chartered Bank, I played various roles. I was in India, and then I went into various international assignments, Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore, and UAE. About 5 years back, this urge to come back to India and do something in the Indian banking industry hit me. And an opportunity came up in the form of joining Federal Bank, and that's how I'm here now with Federal Bank. Currently, my role in Federal Bank, I cover operations, technology, digital, retail banking. I've got a spectrum of things that I oversee in my role in Federal Bank. As I mentioned, Federal Bank is a leading private sector bank in India, 1,280 odd branches across the length and breadth of the country. We pride ourselves on the fact that digital is a very large chunk of what we offer to our customers, but we complement that with a very strong relationship management ethic and a relationship management focus. So this combination of digital and human is what we deliver to the customers. We offer all banking services across retail individuals, small and medium enterprises, commercial banking, corporate banking, the entire suite of services.
Of course.
We are probably around 5th or 6th in the country from a private sector bank perspective. So that's really what a little bit about myself and a little bit about Federal.
Great to hear. Of course, like I've been following up it for a while, and we have seen a couple of your footprints on the digital space, and of course, your work area is quite vast. Federal Bank has been one of the pioneer in terms of technology adoption in the banking sector. What have been the reason for this, and what are your future plans?
So I think there are two parts to your question. The reason why technology is such an ingredient in what we do and how we've been successful in that adoption and some of our future plans.
Yeah.
So first of all, from a technology perspective, I would widen it a little bit and say it's not just technology, but I think it's the entire ethos and philosophy of digital and digital banking. And the reason why this is such a critical ingredient in our journey is it starts off with the fact that very, very high level of senior management attention and focus on this. We've got huge sponsorship from the board of directors, from the managing director, from the senior management team. And that is evident in the form that, about 4 years back, before digital became kind of the in thing itself, just about 4 years back, we actually carved out digital banking and created a separate business vertical for digital banking. It is not part of technology. It is not part of retail products. It is actually a vertical by itself, which denotes, from a real focus and attention. It has, the unit has a set of metrics that they need to deliver on. They work with technology. They work with the product team. They work with the distribution teams. But they have a set of deliverables, and they become literally the heart and soul of digital for the bank as a whole. So I think that is one of the key reasons why we are successful from a digital standpoint. The other is, I think we have to accept the fact that India has a very supportive ecosystem overall from a digital perspective, whether it is some of the interventions from the regulator like Reserve Bank of India, whether it is the whole aspect of how Aadhaar, our national identity, was created over a span of about 5 or 6 years and has proved to be a very critical ingredient in our digital journey. So there are various interventions that have been done by the regulators. So this the senior management attention plus a supportive ecosystem coming together has been one of the key reasons why Federal Bank has been in the forefront from a technology perspective. From a future plan sorry, Priya?
Please go on.
So I think from a future plan perspective, clearly we are keen to make sure that digital continues to be at the center of everything that we do. We are driving more and more to making sure that we get concrete business benefits out of digital. So, there is a certain level of digitization that we would do from an innovation perspective, from an experimentation perspective. Yes, absolutely. But at the core of it, we need to deliver more and more in terms of actual business benefits. How is it contributing to an increased return on assets? How is it contributing to an increased return on return on equity? These are some of the metrics that we are driving our digital towards. So towards that end, most of our plans are around one, digital migration. How do we make sure customers no longer come to the branch or need to come to the branch to do a transaction? They can do it on digital. That's one. The other is, tie-ups with fintech partners. And there are quite a few of them in India that we work with. These fintech partners help us in the fact that they understand some of the customer needs. They understand how to make it kind of really very, unique and, convenient from a customer standpoint. While we provide the banking expertise, we provide the technology, etc. So the coming together of all these makes these partnerships, quite lucrative for the bank as well as for the customer and the partner. So delivering more digital migration, tying up with more and more fintech partners in various areas of the business, generally just making life much easier from a customer standpoint, whether it is at the point of onboarding or on an ongoing basis, is at the core of what we're going to what we will be delivering in the next few years.
Very interesting. I mean, my background is fintech, so I'm always keen to know what's happening. I've been working in industry for many, many years, fintech industry. I came Australia due to fintech industry, so that was my transfer. So I'm always keen what is happening in this space, and that's what excited me of your whole profile when I looked at. A very interesting factor you bring that community is in the center. The matter you are thinking, no matter what you are doing, even if it is digital or non-digital or fintech, community is in the center. And that's really very important these days in the banking sector to keep going that trust factor amongst the overall audience who are, or consumers who are actually utilizing our services, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
So the banking sector is witnessing a new paradigm after the COVID-19. Technologies like fintechs are becoming even more important. Could you share with us your insights on how the future of banking will be, and what do bank needs to stay fit and profitable?
Absolutely. So I think no conversation can be held without COVID kind of finding some center stage on it. But that is, we've gone through 2020 with that. Some parts of 2021 will also get kind of impacted by it. But I think from a banking perspective, and I speak to banking in India, I'll definitely just borrow from something that, one of my bosses has been talking about, and we have been, working on within the bank, within Federal Bank. So the way we see banking is, I think there are three aspects we see banking will become contactless, has become contactless, will continue to become more and more contactless. So contactless is one scheme of things.
Yeah.
The second is sachetization, and I'll come to that in a minute. Sachetization, which is, little smaller modules of things. That's the second theme. And the third theme is what we call bespokeization, or some amount of customization. So I'll just talk about the three very quickly. The first is contactless. Clearly, contactless is the way of the future.
Yeah.
And, customers are demanding it. Customers are wanting it.
Yeah.
There are apprehensions about contact, etc. And so, we've been doing a lot of work on it. For example, we launched contactless cards where you just tap and go, and therefore you don't have to touch the PIN pad. You don't have to touch anything. And recently, the regulator was also conscious of this and raised the limit on contactless by 2.5 times, literally. So, because now the risk profile is well understood, etc. So contactless from a customer standpoint is the focus. We've actually also moved beyond that to say contactless from an employee perspective. So when you do authentication, typically we used to have people having to log into the system by doing their user ID, password, and fingerprint. That used to be the profile that we had. But with COVID, etc., we realized there were risks. People were, simple things like if you wear a glove, it may not recognize it. People will have to remove the gloves. So our frontline was finding it difficult. We recently launched a new way of authenticating our employees, which is face authentication, completely contactless, but completely safe and secure. So contactless as a theme for customers as well as employees is one theme of which banking is going forward with. The second theme that I speak about is what we call sachetization. You're probably too young, but younger, slightly older generation might remember years back in India, these small shampoo packets became very, very popular, particularly in the rural areas where, from affordability and convenience standpoint, you used to get small packets of shampoo, just sufficient for one wash. And, the FMCG industry picked that up, and today you get sachetization on virtually everything in the FMCG industry. Banking is also moving to a lot of sachetization. I think the COVID pandemic has realized people are probably not willing to make kind of longer, larger value investments. They want to start with small. So, systematic investment plans, for example, in mutual funds, etc. The ticket sizes have come down. People want ease and convenience of being able to invest a small sum of money, $10, $30 every month, rather than, going for an investment of $2,000, $3,000.
Very interesting.
People are taking smaller sized loans. So they're coming in for loans, which are small value loans to buy an immediate deliverable, etc. So sachetization, or the ability to deliver things in small units, has become important. And what's important to note in that is you cannot afford a cost model, which is large in that case, because you have to deliver this in a form and fashion which is easy, convenient, quick and digital. Otherwise, the cost dynamics and the customer convenience get impacted. So sachetization is the second kind of theme. And the third theme is more for our high net worth individual customers, etc. They are demanding more and more of what we call bespokeization or customization at theirs. They want to be recognized as the power of one. Rather than a number on the system, they want to be recognized for their own individual self. And this is for the high net worth individuals. So, we've, in the last few months, we've launched a program for just that kind of profile of customers, which is very unique in that it really recognizes each individual's needs and has a bouquet of offerings for that need. So, so it's kind of a lot of customization. So the future of banking really, in our view, will be around these themes of contactless, sachetization, bespokeization. And to be fit and profitable, which is part of what you asked, you have to make sure that you deliver these with cost dynamics that the P&L can bear. Otherwise, if you kind of blow up on the cost front, you will never be profitable as an organization. That's really where we see the banking industry going. And we in Federal Bank are doing various steps to meet these customer needs.
Very, very interesting. So you are actually targeting all shape and size of the consumers. The customer want to reach you out, you have the solution for that. If I'll say in a nutshell. So
yes, absolutely.
Very interesting. Banking operation in India are totally different from those in other countries. Could you tell us about your experience in different countries?
Yeah, so I think as I mentioned at the start, I have worked across various geographies. India, obviously, and then I moved to the southeast side of things, Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore for some time, and then I was in the Middle East. I was based out of Dubai, but I was actually managing, I was managing some part of our business for Africa as well as for the Middle East. So yes, I have some perspective. But you're right. I think banking in India is completely unique and different, and I'll tell you why I believe that is there. So I first look at it from a consumer standpoint. I think based on my experience with all the countries I've worked with, the Indian consumer is much more aware and much more demanding. Obviously, the demographics are such that they're becoming younger and younger. I mean, India is a much younger thing. The population is becoming younger. So they literally, what our customers are demanding is, even from a banking kind of perspective, they're demanding an experience which is like an Uber or a Zomato, or they want that kind, or an Amazon, frictionless, reliant, self-serving with no interventions, etc. So they need the safety and security of banking, but they need the experience of an Amazon or the experience of a Zomato or an Uber. So the consumer kind of pressure on banks is the highest, I feel, in India when compared to some of the work I've done in other countries. And it's a very interesting challenge to keep kind of delivering to the customer need. The other is from a bank perspective, I think I clearly see, and this is a reflection probably of India's, being such a powerhouse from a technology standpoint. I think the access to technology for banks in India is much higher than what I have seen in my experience with some of the other countries. Whether it is a cloud where you have so many options, whether it is machine learning, whether it's data analytics, whether it's robotic process automation, you name it, you have all of these technologies available in India and available at literally kind of your doorstep. It's up to you as a bank to see which one you use it. So, the availability of technology and keeping pace with that technology is another kind of aspect of banking, which is different in India. Last but not the least, definitely, is the whole ecosystem that I referred to. The regulator, for example, Reserve Bank of India, has been at the forefront of bringing out a lot of changes from an innovation perspective. They've recently constituted an innovation hub where they're willing to experiment on various technology. You look at the payments landscape. India is probably the only country with a payment landscape where from large payments under the RTGS, real-time gross settlement, to the National Electronic Fund Transfer, to immediate payments, all of them are available 24/7 now. You can make any of these payments 24/7. So between the customer and the kind of profile of the customer, between that access to technology and the framework, the ecosystem, which is very, very appreciative and suitable for banks like us, I think banking in India is has been very advantaged in my view when compared to some of my experience with the other countries.
Yeah, very interesting. And I've noticed that. Since you mentioned the younger generation, and India is the youngest country in the world, we all know that. And World Bank has already identified like most of the people are under 42 years old, and the demands and the awareness is very high, for sure. But did you see that most of the younger generation, they are not hesitant to put their data on anywhere, everywhere, same as you mentioned at the Amazon and Google Pay and all that. And is it causing a lot of security issue, and is causing too much effort for the banks to maintain the security as at higher risk?
Yeah, so I think, Priya, again, a very, very important question. As as we kind of emphasize more and more of digitization, there is obviously this concern from a privacy standpoint, security standpoint, etc. So it's obviously center table. It's an agenda item for senior management of not just my bank, but all banks as well as the regulator. So I can only refer to what we as a bank are doing. At the first end of it is, I think at the core of it is customer education, in my view. Particularly when it comes to banking transactions, we spend a lot of time kind of just educating customers on basic disciplines of digital transactions. What is it that they should do? What is it that they should not do? So there is a whole host of education that we have invested in, and we continue to invest, whether it's in the form of flyers, snippets on the videos. We continually communicate with customers on the do's and don'ts from a digital standpoint. What is it that they should do. In addition to that, we've obviously, plugged in a lot of tools and techniques that help customers. And I'll give you a couple of examples on that. If you take our mobile banking, and it's a very, very popular mobile banking, the country is very mobile friendly, as you know. Everybody has a smartphone, everybody has access to 4G. So mobile banking is something, in fact, it's overtaking usage of internet banking by a mile and more. So in mobile banking, again, susceptible to a lot of risks, etc. if we don't take care of it. We are probably one of the only banks in India that have actually invested in an IBM technology called Trustier, which is inbuilt into our mobile banking proposition, and which ensures authentication of the customer, the SIM card from where the customer is accessing mobile banking, and a range of other protocols. So the use of Trustier is kind of a tool that we've invested in to give customers the confidence that, if they're dealing with us through mobile banking, they can be sure there is safety out there. In addition to that, we use two-factor authentication. We also enable customers to actually switch on and switch off their debit card, for example, on the mobile banking, literally via a button. If you're, for example, you're not using your debit card, and debit cards are always susceptible to fraud, debit cards are always susceptible to be hacked and compromised, etc. You can just go into your mobile banking and switch it off. You can, when you want to use it, you can just switch it on, it gets on, you use it, you put it back off. So that's a huge tool, and we encourage customers to use that extensively, to say that you just need it at the point of transaction. If you're doing an online purchase, keep it off. But when you're on that online, just a click, it's just one click, and just do it. Thanks. So there are tools and techniques of this kind, along with this underpinning philosophy of customer education, has helped us. And I'm proud to say that Federal Bank's fraud rates have been materially lower, or loss rates have been materially lower than the industry in this regard. Is the journey over? No, this is a continuous journey. It's always a challenge to keep yourself 3 steps ahead of fraudsters who are quite intelligent and finding new ways to do things. So we continually invest in the thing. We have literally separate teams of people whose only occupation is, doing things like ethical hacking and other stuff to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities. So yes, safety and security is a big element of our lives. It is literally the other side of the coin of digitization. You cannot have one without the other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember I worked in fraud management area. I worked for the bank here, and it was more of identifying the bank within 30 milliseconds, because you have to transact within 100 milliseconds. We do not talk about in seconds, we talk about milliseconds. Yes. So when we are identifying in that milliseconds, and the way the criminology is going on, the cybercrime and all is going on, there is always a new way, thousands of rules we are writing and, identifying those fraud. And hats off to the fintech companies and the banks also putting all that effort. They have like a full research team. And you guys are working and actually handling those things, especially when it is a global market. You don't know what kind of a currency and what kind of a transaction is happening overnight and over a minute.
Yes.
Expectation from the consumer is also increased, that when I'm sending money from here, it should reach immediately within half an hour to India.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's speed is really in last 1 decade, 2 decades. It's amazing improvement we have seen in this speed of transaction.
Priya, it's a good thing about speed and accuracy. You said half an hour. Actually, today, consumers are expecting instant payments, So we do a lot of cross-border remittances. Federal Bank has a very high market share on cross-border remittances. Nearly 17% of India's cross-border remittances are processed by Federal Bank. So we kind of say this to our partners in the Middle East, as well as in places like the US, Canada, even Singapore, etc. What we tell them is, if a customer is making a physical payment at that end, so he's walking into a branch of a remittance partner, he gives the money at the counter, completes the transaction, and before he leaves and gets out of the door of that branch, the money would have been credited to the beneficiary in India, and both the remitter and the beneficiary would have got an SMS stating, both of you can be safe and sound, the money has reached the beneficiary. That's the speed at which we do it, and that's obviously enabled by technology like API banking. We have connects on API banking with all our partners, plus helped by the 24/7 methodologies that our National Payments Corporation of India has invested in. So a combination of that. So even before you leave the counter, you get a message saying your remittance has reached the beneficiary. So there's no luxury of 30 minutes also, Priya.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And it's also very interesting to see the way the clearance organization there has worked out to build this whole international remittance, and it's a whole international money transaction is actually amazing. Heads off, lots of bodies involved. We know how it is hard to achieve. And it's no more near real time. It's all real time transaction people want. So
near real time is history now.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to see the shift in last 2 decades I have been seeing in the banking sectors. It's very amazing. Having said that, right now, when we see that a lot of businesses are trying to come to Australia, and so from India, from Australia, from other banks, other part of the world as well, as you can see, current scenario is changing and the trade partners are changing overall across the border. How do you think federal government is playing the role in that to ease the business and getting, suppose somebody wants to open up a business there and wants to take a loan? Is there any facility for NRIs and all if they wants to take that?
Yes, the regulator and the government of India have been doing a lot of work in this area to make it easy and convenient, ease of doing business. They've digitized a lot of the processes that need to be done to get the approvals. They've invested in a lot of single window clearances kind of thing, depending on the kind of industry, as long as it's not one of those high risk defense industry, but it is a normal consumer industry. You can get single window clearances. Opening of bank accounts has been made easy, getting your corporate registration done. So there are a range of interventions that are done for entities. And for individuals, in any case, India has always been very friendly from a non-resident individual's perspective. You have a range of facilities that you can do. So, for example, in Federal Bank, we do offer loans to our non-resident customers. If they want to open a business in India, we do use their income sources in the US or in Australia or wherever they are. We use that and assess that as the basis to give them a loan in India. So either they or a family member can open a business in India. So generally speaking, the whole in the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of work has been done to ease the process, to make it more digital in nature, to enable people to come in and invest. Each bank has a set of kind of schemes like we do with State Bank of India does, etc. So I think it's generally become much easier to do business in India and invest in it, from large corporates wanting to do manufacturing to the small, medium enterprises guys who want to open something more homegrown, both ends, I think. And obviously for the smaller for the smaller kind of enterprises, the small and medium enterprises, because India is a very small and medium enterprise oriented economy, entrance of people like Amazon and Flipkart has helped. You can literally, the markets have got blurred. You don't need to really be in a Mumbai or a Delhi. You can be in any kind of small location, but access the customers through, through any of these e-commerce platforms. So I think the things have definitely become easier. As is in most of these cases, can we do more? Absolutely. I think there will be, unfortunately, the pandemic may have set things back, but, intention to do a lot more trade forums, to do a lot more exhibitions, to do a lot more. I think all these intentions were there. I'm sure it'll come back to them.
Very interesting factor. Like I am hearing there are a lot of UAE-based people want to invest outside the UAE. The country from overseas, all developed country, they wants to go to the different part of the world, especially in India, considering the current scenario with the China, current trade war with the Australia-China situation. So there are a lot of Australians are actually looking at an opportunity and opening up their ventures in the Australia. So, but biggest challenge is that ease of the and understanding about the whole market. So I think, of course, as you mentioned, there is more education required in terms of that. And a lot of people are aware that there is an opportunity, but they don't know how to start.
How to use it, Which is where I think things like trade forums, trade fairs, all of this could help. And I think, we'll see a resurrection of these once this COVID pandemic period is over.
Yeah, very interesting. That we would be looking forward, because we have a lot of questions coming up, these kind
Sure.
of things, when it comes to the
Okay.
people who like us.
Yeah.
But that brings to my last question. As a working woman, how do you manage to have a successful work-family life balance? Most of the people wants to know people like you, and they look up to
Okay.
you.
Yeah. I think the first thing is, I must admit the work life balance is not a term that I would like use. It's more about work life integration. I think we
Yes.
should move beyond. It's not a scale that you can balance. There are times when the entire priority has to be on work because there's some crisis, God forbid, happening, or there's a major project to be delivered on, etc. There are times when absolutely something on the family front has to take predominance, and we've got to be able to kind of integrate these two and work with these two together. But
Very true.
specifically, I think what has helped me honestly is one is kind of making sure have my priorities in order. So I'm pretty clear in my mind, and this is more personal for us, for me as an individual. Very clear in my mind what my priorities are. I have a set of priorities at a daily level, what do I want to achieve today. I have a set of priorities at a weekly level, which I kind of recap on in the beginning of the week to say, okay, this week I want to achieve these. And I have a set of priorities which are slightly more longer term, month, quarter, etc. But those priorities are very clearly there, and I'm a big believer in kind of jotting it down and keeping it as a ready reference, so that it's there, and just for my own understanding.
Yeah.
And those priorities are both, set of priorities that I want to do on a professional front, but there are also always priorities that I want to do, time I want to set out for myself to do some reading or to do something I enjoy. So one is the prioritization and being quite, for lack of a better term, hard-nosed about it, being a thing. Yes, there may be some deviations, some firefighting may happen on a certain day, maybe a system problem, or maybe, God forbid, somebody's not well.
Yeah.
Those are things one has to take in one course. So I think being very, very focused about priorities, both immediate and long term, is clearly, one attribute that I use very extensively to make sure that I get my integration right between work and life.
Very interesting.
The other is, seeking out a support system and not feeling guilty about it and not being quite shameless about it to a large extent.
Yeah.
And I mean, the traditional support system has always been home, etc. And in India, I think people have been lucky because you've got access to parents, access to things. Having said that, the support system is beyond that. I'm quite shameless in saying that I seek support from, colleagues in the office. If there is an issue that I need to handle, which I'm not able to do, I have no issues reaching out to colleagues saying, can you just help me get this sorted out, because I have another priority that I need to work on. Obviously, my secretary is a great support system. So I'm quite shameless in that sense about reaching out to a support system and using them. And it's quid pro quo, because tomorrow it could be at the other end when somebody needs help, I'm available for them and that helps. So the support system is another key kind of ingredient in this whole work-life integration. The other area is, I honestly do make sure that I find a little time for what I call networking. I don't mean networking in the older in the more getting out in the evenings or that. I think that's not really what. But I do a lot of work with organizations like, for example, the Confederation of Indian Industry. I'm a member of that. The Kerala Management Association, I'm a member of that. A whole host of other things, which is more professional networking, which enables me to kind of refresh my mind and therefore, not get constrained by only thinking about banking, because it opens up my horizons to topics which, the change in labor codes, something else, etc. So I think between, a prioritization schedule, a support system, and this focus on networking, I'm probably one of the lucky people, but I believe the work-life integration has worked very well for me.
Very interesting. And I think people should think like that, because you see, you can't ignore everybody, whether you live in any country, anywhere in the world, that is required. And prioritization, yeah, I do agree. Prioritization is very important. Otherwise, it's very hard to balance out, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So thank you for your time today. It was really interesting chatting with you. I'm sure people will be having a lot of questions. I hope they will be asking, they can ask their
Sure.
questions in the chat.
Yes.
And your details will be given, the bank details will
Sure.
be given on the bottom.
Sure.
And if anybody wants to reach out to the Indian
We can.
SMEs and banking loans and all, and feel free to reach out to the Pregla Bank. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you very much. Wish you a great year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.